Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Supposedly. Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's do it. Ah, I see. Yeah, why not? Might as well do the intros, isn't it?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Startup Talent Q&A. I believe it's our 149th session. We've been doing these for, 4 years almost. It will be 4 years at the end of this month, where we aim to help startups like yourselves as you seek to help yourself with the right people. What I mean by that is when it comes to your startup's HR or talent acquisition or whatever word you may use for finding, hiring, keeping, and empowering the people, the right people, in the right way for your business. And the idea, it's quite simple. You see, unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail. And the top three reasons for that are: one, market fit; two, running out of money; and three, not having the right people. And I don't think there could be anything as important as actually having the right people than any of those other things, because let's be honest, those people are the ones that will help you with everything else. Now, as far as your questions today are concerned, they can be on anything to do with talent, whether you want to know which platform to perhaps go and find somebody, or maybe how do you interview someone, how much you pay them, how do you test them, how do you do their background checks, maybe how do you train and empower them, and all that jazz. There are no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. Now, just a quick reminder for those of you that are tuning in via our live streams, whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there. Now, those live streams should have, most of them at least, should have a link to our Microsoft Teams interactive live audio, because that is the only way you can ask questions if you join us here on Microsoft Teams. If you don't, a good way to go about it is to then go to our website, startup2scaleup.club, click on today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 149, click join. You'll then get an email to your most likely perhaps spam or junk if you haven't used us before. And then you click on that link and you're able to join us. If your questions, however, today are not on talent, please save them for the other events we run. We're currently doing 6 regular Q&As. Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, second Friday of the month is legal, third Friday of the month it's finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can actually RSVP to any of them via our site, startup2scaleup.club. When you actually get to our site, what you might want to do is join our WhatsApp community and become one of us. You can do that by clicking at the WhatsApp icon, either at the top or bottom of the screen. And when you do that, you'll also get alerts via that WhatsApp community for all the Q&As we host. We've only got 59 minutes, no, 49, exactly, 49 minutes to go. So I wouldn't leave it for too late if I were you to come onto Microsoft Teams and ask questions. The way that works is you join us here, you then type your question in the chat, and I'll give you the mic to ask our panel. And I guess now we'll go to some quick introductions. And then perhaps Rosie can tell us what are her biggest do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage hiring. And then we can start taking some questions. We already see a question from Pauline, and we'll give Pauline the mic in a minute. And then we'll see if anybody else wants to type that question too. So my name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups. Normally right after they get investment, I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators, and have been helping some angels and family offices with their due diligence and their assessments. Now, the floor is yours, Rosa.
Thanks, Anton. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here and to share some knowledge and hopefully give you some advice that will help you with your journey for your startup or scale up. My name is Rosie Hewitt. I'm founder of Rosie's People. We're a HR and business operations consultancy. I have a background in HR and people management and business operations for over 20 years. And the consultancy supports startups all the way to enterprise businesses with everything related to people, talent, and operational efficiency. And for my do's and don'ts when recruiting, do have a list of what you're actually looking for. So give it some thought. Really think about the type of people that you need. Really think about the type of skills that you need. Be self-critical about what you can't do and look for people that can complement that. And be very honest with yourself and with the people that you are inviting to join you on your journey on the basis of trust. Be very honest with them about what you can and what you can't do, what you can and what you can't actually offer or follow through on. Nobody likes broken promises. And yes, when you're trying to build a business, sometimes it feels like you've got to just sell everything just to get the people on board. But that is not a good way to start a business. So those would be my initial do's and don'ts for now.
Thank you very much for that, Rosie. As far as my do's and don'ts are, do listen to what Rosie's got to say, and don't I think that everybody's going to see your startup like you do. It's your baby, not theirs. Right here, we now have a question from Pauline, one of the co-founders of our startup of the month. Pauline, I've unmuted you. I don't know if you're able to talk. Can you try?
Yes, hello there, Anton. Good afternoon.
Brilliant. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Please, a quick introduction, Pauline, and then fire away with your question.
Yes, so I am co-founder with my friend from university, Becca Leithleen, of a wellbeing app, Reggae Calm. And it's an area which is familiar to many people now in the 21st century, that we're all so stressed and wound up. We need to be able to access an app to unwind. But reggae sounds, and it's been proven scientifically, can calm you down. So we're filling a gap here. So that's what we're about. And the question that I have for Rosie, hello there, is what's the best way to find tech developers and negotiating a share of equity with them?
Hi, Pauline. I have to say, I love the name of your business.
Thank you so much.
It's so catchy. Love it. Yeah. Oh, the age-old question of finding good tech developers. Okay, finding good tech developers. I want to say it's not hard, but it's also hard. It just depends on what you are offering. So before we talk about equity, the real question is, how have you presented the equity conversation? How have you presented the value of the equity to them to get them to be engaged? Because at the moment, I hope you will appreciate that most technologists, especially coming into the startup space and the scale up space, equity is just something that they now expect as a standard as part of their offer, because that's what's been done for the last decade or so. So the question of how much is enough, it comes down to what are you offering overall. Now, most startups have this challenge of, well, I have zero budget to give you the regular benefits and the private medical, the dentals, and all of that could add to all of that. So this is where your MVP and your mission becomes even more important in how you communicate it, and what you're trying to do becomes more important, because a lot of technologists actually will work for you. I wouldn't say for free, but some would consider taking a reduced rate of their normal market rate. Not something that I would normally encourage, of course. But some would actually do that if the work looks interesting to them, because they want to be stimulated. They want work that they can say, yes, actually, I fixed this problem, or I delivered this product that is solving this problem. I was part of the team that built this thing before it blew up and became the thing that everybody now wants to do. So you do have a little bit of leverage there that you could sort of, depending on how you present your proposal and your proposition and your mission to them, you can attract the right candidates. Now, where to find the candidates? Well, there are great technologists around the world. Depending on the type of company that you are and how you work, some people prefer when you're early stage to have everybody showing up every day in person. I'll be honest with you, for a lot of technologists, that's going to be a deal breaker. Most technologists want to have the freedom to do work remotely as much as possible, because a lot of their work requires thinking and no distractions. At the same time, there is also work that they have to do that requires talking to other colleagues, other similar minded technologists, to flesh out their thought process and get to where they're trying to get to. I hope that's making sense. So overall, it's kind of come down to, what are you offering? What's your proposition? What makes you the place that I might want to come and work? Why should I come and build your products? How are you presenting the problem you're solving that will make a technologist think, yeah, actually, I want to put some time into that? And then how are you structuring your equity? So if you say, okay, I'm going to give you 20,000 shares, what people really want to know is, what is the current value of those 20,000 shares today? If I was to sell them, when can I sell them? What is your exit plan? And how do you intend to increase the value of the shares beyond my input? Because they're going to be thinking, I'm going to come and do my work, I'm going to deliver, but are you going to make sure that everybody else will deliver to make sure that that value goes up as well? And are you going to build a culture that will allow for us to have that sort of environment? I'm talking loads. Sorry, Anton.
No, this is not talking loads. This is giving very good advice. So feel free to be as extensive as you wish, Rosie.
Okay, as you can tell, this is an area of work that I'm quite passionate about. How you hire people, the type of people you hire, how you keep them as well is something that I think a lot of startups don't think about early enough. So having the conversation and even just asking the question is a great first step, because you put the strategy in place. If you put in the right foundations, your house will be solid.
Thank you very much, Rosie. And Pauline, I'll give you my quick 2 pence, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be as kind as Rosie was this time, although I think I'm being kind because I think I'm being helpful. The way things work today, Pauline, unless it's somebody you know really well and you're offering not just some equity, but pretty much co-founder rights and equity and shares and so on. Finding a techie that will do this just in exchange for equity, it's very next to and very near to impossible. Actually, even just finding somebody that will accept full co-founder, i.e. to be on par with you and Becca, or is it Becky? I'm sorry, it's Becca, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So even somebody who will be on par with you and Becca will be extremely difficult, unfortunately. And I say this quite often. Finding the right co-founder, it's just as hard, if not harder, than finding a life partner today. So what I would like to do is, rather than kind of lead you to a certain path that may give you false hopes, I think if I were you, I would follow something else that may have better outcomes, and that is to see if you can find somebody who will be a tech advisor to you. And from that person, you should expect no more than a maximum of half a day, maybe if they're really nice, a day per month. And not whenever you want to reach out to them, but you set a day that works for them in exchange for, I don't know, 0.5% perhaps of equity. Somebody who's been there and done it to help you with this, maybe to even guide you in doing a mock-up on one of these app builders and so on. And that is just so that you can hopefully get enough to raise some money if you haven't got the money to do it yourself. Although my best advice would be to do either of two things. One, to find somebody who's based, I don't know, in Pakistan or Azerbaijan, or I don't know, wherever there are very low salaries, and get them to build you enough of an app so that you can raise some money from it. Or you actually go and find, again, in one of these countries, you find a software house that says, okay, I'll build it for you, but I want 15%. And again, you'd be lucky if you do manage that, but that is the situation. Unfortunately, unless you are, I don't know, a founder who's exited 3 or 4 businesses and has made some serious money from those exits, or are well known, is going to be extremely hard to find somebody that will build this for you in exchange for equity. I know it's a bit harsh, but it's reality. Go on, Rosie.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's not entirely impossible if she has a certain level of flexibility. Because I've helped
nothing is impossible, of course, but in terms of reality on the ground,
yeah, on the
what I
ground.
see.
Yeah, so just to let me quantify why I've said that. So the last couple of months, I've helped a couple of startups actually hire people based on equity only, but the condition of that was flexibility in the time, and it was very fractional time. So if you're not in a rush to build this product and you have time to wait, given that you don't have cash to pay, as a base salary or whatever, or you're on a very limited budget, then it is possible to find people that can work on stuff for you, but it would be a slow process because, of course, it would be a passion project for them that they would be doing alongside their other jobs out of hours. So, some of the startups that's reached out to me that I helped to find people on that basis, as it was a very, very, very same conversation. And look, I'll be very transparent with you. As as Anton has said, it's not easy to find people like that, especially if you're expecting a certain level of hours to be put in. You also need to be mindful of not being accused of, breaking the law and not paying people for work that they've done and things like that. But if you're flexible and you don't mind the wait, then it is potentially possible.
Well, can I just say,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
Go on.
both ends of the spectrum there, and a number of things are ringing true here, because we actually did find somebody who said, "Oh, don't even talk about money. Let me just do this at 3 a.m." Bit of a hermit, bit of a maverick, but we need to put some framework around that. How many hours, etc., and how far can you take this? I also take on board Anton's idea of seeking talent in, places like Pakistan or India. But I have been warned that certain parts of the world don't necessarily adhere to what we would in terms of sharing and ownership. I don't know if that's too much of a broad brushstroke in your experience.
Are you saying in terms of sharing and ownership, are we talking equity here, or what are we talking about?
Your product.
Okay, meaning you think they might take over some of the IP and give it to somebody else?
Or whatever, yeah, elements
Okay,
of your product.
I hear. Look, that is very likely to happen here or anywhere else. There's one thing that I've learned, Pauline, and that is if your product, it's so easy to be built and sold and sent out there, then maybe you shouldn't work on it. That's number one. But the most important part, in my experience over 20 years in the startup ecosystem, at least here in the UK, I can say that what I've learned is that the people that can steal your idea haven't got the time because they're already building their own stuff. And the ones that have got the time, they haven't got the cojones to do what you want to do. So it's all about the execution. It's not about what features they'll maybe steal from you and give it to somebody else. I really don't think that is the case. Again, I can only speak from my experience, but I really don't think that is the case. And I would focus because, see, apps like yours, and not just like yours, any other app, you find me an app, any app you want, and I can guarantee you there's somebody else who's tried it before and failed, and somebody else who's probably tried it before and hasn't failed. And there'll be other people that will do it. But it's about how people executed whatever tech idea that they had. And this is what your business idea will come down to. It won't come down to the features that you have or don't have. It will come down to how many people you manage to convince to buy and pay money for it. It's as simple as that, Pauline.
Well, that's reassuring. That's reassuring. Yeah, I take on board Rose's idea of finding the person and flexibility as a key factor, if you can offer that in the mix as well. So yes,
Absolutely.
lots to think about there. Thank you
Here's
so
another
much.
thing that I've seen work, but again, it's not easy. Is if you can find a university that can end up doing your app as a project, then you're laughing your way to the bank. And there are people that have done that. Now, that is not as often as I would like to see it happen, because I really would love to see this happen more often than I do. And because often, very good students at university get given, and I know I'm being a bit thingy here, vulgar, but they get given silly work rather than being given something that is actually out there, ready to go to the market or able to go to a market. But I have come across cases where that has happened. So might be something worth looking into.
Well, case in point, we're in discussions at the moment with the university, and it would be quite a bit of bookending, because Becca's story and my story began at university. So, yeah, we're pursuing that.
Indeed. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Pauline, and best of luck again
Thank
with
you.
the startup. And as you know, we'd love to hear on your progress. If nothing else, at least this, or what remains of this month, you'll have priority to ask questions, both you and Becca. So you're more than welcome, and best of luck.
Brilliant. Thank you,
Rightio.
Rosie.
You're welcome. A quick reset of the conversation. We've only got 30 minutes to go. So half the time it's already gone, and I have no idea where. But check this out. This is Startup Talent Q&A. It's our 149th session. We've been doing these for almost 4 years now, where over 270,000 people have joined us. Guess what? None of that would have happened without people like Rosie and her fellow panelists. So perhaps show her your love, follow her on LinkedIn. And by the way, if you'd like Rosie to put your LinkedIn URL here in the chat, that would be great. But the idea is quite simple. Rosie's doing this for free so that she doesn't have to do other stuff for free. So please do bear that in mind for Rosie and all our brilliant panelists. This is Startup Talent Q&A. You can ask us any questions you like on how to and where to find, keep, hire, and empower the right people for your startup business. Whether you want to know how much to pay them, how to interview them, how to check their backgrounds, where to find them, where do they go, why do they leave a company, and why do they stay, and anything within that sphere, all you have to do is type your question in the chat here on Microsoft Teams. We'll then give you the mic, and you can then ask the question. Now, for those of you that are tuning in via YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram, thank you, but no thank you. Unfortunately, we are unable to monitor your questions on those live streams. So you would have to join us interactively here on Microsoft Teams. You can either click on the link. Most of those live streams do have a link that will take you to our Microsoft Teams call. But if you can't access that for any reason, then just click on to, go onto our website, startup2scaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 149. Click join. It's a quick registration. You'll then get an email with a link to join us here in Microsoft Teams. You click on that link, and then you're into our Microsoft Teams and interactive. You then type your question in the chat, give you the mic, and you can take it away. There are no wrong questions. There's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. And by the way, if your questions are not on talent today, please save them for the other events we run. Mondays, as you can see today, it's talent. Tuesdays, it's product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. Second Friday of the month, it's UK startup law, and third Friday of the month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time, and you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup2scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, you might want to join our WhatsApp community. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our website. You click on that, you join our WhatsApp group, and you'll also get alerts to all future sessions that we run. But now, without further ado, perhaps we can go to some questions that were sent in to us, whilst perhaps some of the people that are here already, or those of you that are on the live streams, get ready to come and join us and type your questions in the chat. So I'm not sure if you can read that in the chat room, Rosie, but one that was sent to us, it's a biotech. Okay, I hope I haven't actually, I don't know why, but it sounds familiar, but hopefully I haven't read it before. So she says, I'm the co-founder of a pre-seed biotech university spin startup in London, where we develop lab-grown meat alternatives to address food sustainability. As we begin to grow our team, I'm interested in implementing HR metrics to track employee satisfaction and engagement, but our resources are limited. What basic HR metrics should we prioritize that could offer meaningful insights into our team's experience and productivity? Also, how can we set up a cost-effective way to gather and analyze these metrics, helping us make informed HR decisions? I've looked at her LinkedIn page, and I can only see 3 people, including her in total, in the company, and they are, all 3 of them are in academia. And they look like they have a day job, if that makes sense as well. What would you do here, Rosie?
I mean, always think it's interesting that like biotechnology is always interesting. People talk about alternative to meat and sustainability. So I wish them all the best. I hope they can achieve their goal. And to answer her question, so there's a couple of points that she sort of mentioned. There's no real budget, so, and they're a small team as well. So I would probably focus on qualitative and quantitative metrics that are easy to track and ideally low cost. Low cost as in you wouldn't need to spend any sort of money buying some next platform to track it. And things like that. So, if they have Google Forms or Typeform or any type of free survey tools, they can run like an employee satisfaction score maybe every quarters, just to ask people like, how satisfied are you with your role at the company? It's just a simple thing. And then, of course, the employee net promoter score, I think, is a very important piece of information for most companies. In fact, all companies should be striving to do that whenever they can, if they can get the team to get involved. And it's literally just asking the team on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend a friend to work here? And that helps you to sort of like figure out who like the promoters of the business and the people that that are really engaged are the passive workers and the people that would switch if given the opportunity. I think they usually call the detractors. There's a formula for it. It's literally just the how to say, because the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors, I suppose is a fast way to sort of work that out. And the reason you do that is because it gives you a quick snapshot of the overall engagement of the existing team. And if you do that maybe as a pulse survey, again, maybe once a quarter, or if you're having high anxiety about potentially people leaving, or you're worried that certain people have left and you're having high churn, then maybe do it a little bit more often, as opposed to quarterly, until you get to a phase where you're feeling better. And then, of course, there's the turnover rate and just tracking who's actually around. So these days, when you talk about absenteeism and presenteeism, it's not the same way that we looked at it back in the day when people were remote. Sorry, not remote, when people were mostly in office. Now we have people working in different styles. So it comes down to what is the current working pattern of the organization, because for measuring absenteeism and presenteeism, now it's not really about being physically present, it's actually being physically, or rather being visibly engaged and on top of your work. So it's a different way of actually reviewing that. And then, of course, it's, you just need to also check things like, how long does it take you to fill a role? Because that also gives you an indication of how good your brand is, or whether people actually in the company are willing to promote your vacancies to say, hey, we have a job going, and if they would send that across. And then one that I think is actually quite important is the psychological safety index. And just doing a pulse survey, maybe once a quarter, that basically just asks people, do you feel comfortable voicing your opinions and concerns? And the reason for this, especially for, a biotech, which is a startup and they're doing innovation. Innovation thrives on communication. So it's important that people feel that they can actually communicate and tell you, like, we're not happy about X, Y, Z, or we think this could be improved, etc. But yeah, so those would be my quick, not so quick suggestions to this particular challenge.
Those are very good. And in terms of any free tools, you touched a little bit on Google Forms, but are there any other HR tools that you've come across that are free or free to maybe use for a while that might be useful in this instance? Anything you can think of?
Yeah, actually, like, SurveyMonkey, funnily enough, is actually free, unless you get to a certain stage. At least
I
the
believe
last
it's
time I
2000.
checked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
So
so you
basically,
do
you
have
think
quite a
it's good
capacity
to
there.
focus. Sorry, I kept talking over you. My bad. What I meant to say is, on top of surveys, is there any other metrics, HR metrics, in terms of tools that you think is worth looking at in terms of being free? That is obviously.
Well, the challenge here is free. That is the main thing. The challenge here is the word free. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of free tools anymore, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong, and I'd be more than happy to be proven wrong in this instance. I feel that even some of the free tools from before are now no longer free. You have to pay something to use them or access them, etc. I do think that if you're a startup and you have a little bit of budget available, it's always worth looking at potential HR platforms. Any that can do more than the usual would be useful, because that sort of solves a lot of problems for you. And of course, what a lot of startups probably don't realize is, when you're a startup, even the big HR companies are willing to negotiate with you because they want to grow with you. So you could get, I think the biggest discount I ever negotiated for a platform when I was running startups was 70% discount. Don't tell anybody I told you. So as long as you know how to negotiate, you can actually sometimes get access to really great tools. My recommendation to any founder and anyone who's really interested in building their HR function and making sure that they have that foundation is research what tools are out there. By all means, reach out to people like myself and similar to say, hey, what tools have you used for X, Y, Z? We'll give you a list, and you can just reach out to those companies and say, hey, we're a small company, we've just started, we can't afford your gazillion bucks per month, but we have a £20 budget per month. Can you help us do something with that? And you'd be surprised, you might get some responses that really like make your day.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much, Rosie. And the only thing I would like to add on top of brilliant stuff that Rosie put here is to speak to whichever academia or university you are connected with. Because if you haven't started this business in bad terms in relation to them, I mean, a lot of universities would be more than pleased to actually give you some of their licenses to use in terms of whatever stuff that they have. Perhaps they might even be willing to help you negotiate with somebody else so that you can get a good deal, or perhaps free, so that they can maybe use some of that. I've seen quite a few things happen in terms of universities actually helping their spins. might be a good idea. You probably already are talking to them, but people like you, sure you will have some kind of person or department that deals with enterprise and so on. So it might be worth speaking to these people and just pose the question. I'd love to have a system that measures certain things and we want to keep certain metrics. Can you please help us get those systems? See where that takes you. Rightio, we now have 16 minutes to go. Perhaps we've got time for one or two more questions. I think I've put another question in the chat. Just a quick reminder for those of you that are tuning in via YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, there's no point in you sending me messages. I can see my phone kind of lighting up. Unfortunately, we can't monitor questions live on those live streams. You would have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means if, like me, you want to spend a few hours in front of the mirror doing your hair, you don't need to do that today because it's audio only. You can either join via the links on those live streams or simply go to StartUp to ScaleUp.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 149. Click join, quick registration. You'll then get an email with a link to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Once here, you can then type your question in the chat. I'll give you the mic and you can ask our panel. As far as today's questions are concerned, they can be on anything to do with your team, whether you want to know how and where to find somebody, maybe how to do a job spec, or perhaps how to compile a job advert, or maybe how to interview somebody, how to test them, how to find out if they say they've done X, Y, Z, that they've really done that, how to do background checks, how to offer them the right remuneration and all that jazz. This is the place to be. We do this every Monday from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. But if today's questions are not on talent, then save them for the other events we do. So, as you can see, today's talent, Tuesdays is product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of the month, it's UK startup law, and third Friday of the month, it's UK startup finances. They're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And you can RSVP to any of them via our site, startup to scaleup.club. And actually, when you're there, join our WhatsApp community as well. You, join an amazing community of founders, investors, and operators, but also get alerts to all our future events. And for now, I think we can go on to another question. I don't know if you can see that in the chat, Rosie. So, okay, I'm assuming she's saying I'm one of 4 co-founders of a health tech startup in Sheffield, where we develop mobile apps for remote health monitoring. We've had a few key team members leave recently, and I want to improve retention. What strategies can we use to ensure that employees feel valued? And how can we offer professional development opportunities without a significant budget? I've done a bit of stalking and saw her profile. There's 7 other people that are sort of associated with that company page on LinkedIn. So I guess what strategies can we use to ensure that employees feel valued? And how can we offer professional development opportunities without a significant budget? So how do you make someone feel valued? That's question number 1. And 2, how would you get somebody to develop professionally without spending money? Rosie?
That mythical spending free, the word free. But yes, it's not impossible. I guess the first thing that came to mind when I read this question, there was a part of me, I suppose you could call it the embedded HR guru in me, that immediately thought, can I see the exit interview logs? Because there's so much you can get from that, and I hope that they are having exit interviews with leavers, because that is such an easy source of data for improvement and for learning about the things that you may be doing wrong. Having said that, though, that also the integrity of that data also depends on the type of environment you've created. So if you've created an environment where people don't feel they can speak freely, your exit interviews might not be of much use to you. People will just play safe and just say all the right things because they're afraid of saying anything that might upset people, and they're always worried about not getting a reference. So the culture becomes even more important. But going back to the questions at hand, retention strategies to make employees feel valued. So most people leave when they don't feel valued, or they don't feel heard, or they feel invisible. So, you know, some easy things that you could do Slack is a free platform, unless you want all the extra bells and whistles, then you pay for it. But some of the easy things you can actually do would just be to set up a shout out system, just to publicly recognize the efforts of people in the team. Your founders. So send in a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly founders thank you email that's highlighting contributions from standout people will be good. Always recommend that companies should have some sort of recognition award, even if you can do a couple of them, even better. But you should offer something, even if it's just a free lunch or coffee. It's just so it makes it more meaningful to the individuals. But that publicly acknowledging people's contribution has a very powerful element to it. If you consider that if somebody embarrasses you in front of everybody, and then they come to give you a one-to-one apology, that apology is not going to sit right with you. You would want them to apologize with the same audience. And it's almost the same sort of mentality. Like, if I'm doing a great job, or I've pulled an all-nighter to help you deliver a specific project that then got you a deal with a new customer, it would be nice to actually have you recognize to everybody else that I did this piece of work that led to this level of success, growth, whatever. So that's one thing you could do. Another thing that I've found over the years that, and I think I kind of touched on it earlier on, is just allowing people to have a voice, creating an environment where people feel they can have a voice, not making it so that they only feel they can have a voice when they are leaving. So it's important to find out, when people are leaving, why, but also important that you have regular interactions with people before they leave. So I call them retention meetings, where you can have exit interviews if people have definitely made up their minds to leave. If it's somebody that you really want to retain, you try to have a retention meeting after they've communicated that they want to leave. But most of the time, what you always want to try and strive for is that you have that regular touch point with people to make sure that they're happy and they're not thinking of leaving, so that you're providing avenues for communication that allows them to contact you if they are having a reason to consider leaving. They feel comfortable to come and talk to you and say, hey, I'm going through this, or this is happening in the company right now and I don't like it. It's making me feel some kind of way about being here. And you can address those things before it gets to you know what, I'm not staying, I'm gone. Of course, once people decide they're leaving, even if you manage to convince them to stay, more often than not, they still leave within 6 months. So just FYI. And then the other thing you could do is to offer people more ownership and autonomy. So, delegate responsibility, not just tasks. Let people lead projects or experiment with things that is their area of expertise. Allow them to have some sort of say. They're not going to take over your company, but just allowing people to feel like they actually have some ownership over the work that you've hired them to do, because that's their area of expertise, is very powerful. So, and of course, the equity grants, always a good thing if you can give people equity so that they feel like they have skin in the game. And then before I go on too much about this area, let's talk about the professional development opportunities. So one of the things that I implemented in other companies when there was no budget, knowledge sharing. So it wouldn't just be a coffee roulette. It would literally be a knowledge sharing roulette to allow other team members to randomly be paired up with other people, to sort of have lunch and learn sessions to learn what other individuals do in the company. And if possible, if people are interested in being mentored by other people, allow that to happen. Don't immediately turn it down. Say, okay, if you guys want to spend your lunch breaks and, learn from each other, that's also fine. So you can have sessions that you plan properly. There's also that option where it's not just organic. It can actually be like, okay, we're going to do these. We're going to actually build a whole strategy of monthly lunch and learn. I can't talk anymore. Lunch and learn sessions. And why? Because of course, this allows you to build skills without the external training course. You're also preparing like internal backup, if you like, future proofing and having a pipeline in case somebody goes off sick or whatever. The knowledge is not stuck with that person, which often happens when it's a small team. So just allowing knowledge to flow is actually a good thing. And of course, there are some free online courses, and they offer certifications like Coursera, Udemy, and Google's Digital Garage and Future Learn and all those places. Encourage people to set learning goals and share with the team what they've learned. Allow people to do that. If necessary, give an additional 1 hour per week for just learning, to say, okay, on this particular day you can have an additional hour to just learn something. It's not entirely free because you're still paying them for the hour, but it's a lot cheaper than bringing in somebody to come and do it. Another option would be, of course, to reimburse the cost of one course per quarter per employee, but I don't know what sort of budget you have. And then, of course, Anton's talked about universities here quite a bit. You can also partner with universities and local incubators. Yeah, I could talk on this for a while, so I'm going to hand over because I'm looking at the clock and realizing I've been talking for a while.
No, not at all. This is very useful stuff, and thank you very much for it, Rosie. I know I'm repeating some of the stuff you mentioned, but I'm a huge fan of the buddy structures, where when somebody joins, you buddy them up with a more experienced person, and Rosie touched on that. I would strongly advise you do that. I've also done this before, Rosie mentioned, in terms of moving people around. It really helps to help everybody understand what others do in their day job. Because often people have this idea that it's only me who's doing all the work. And two, it also helps people gel with each other. And ultimately, they'll understand your company and your business better and want to do better. If I had my way of doing things, every single company that I advise or work or in any way I'm involved, I would get them to spend money and make each and every person that joins them, no matter what job and role they play in the company, to do a Prince 2 training and certification. Whilst this is not the usual route, especially for startups, because it is quite structured. But I think only when you're structured enough, you can learn to break all the rules and still go towards success. So that would be my idea. And two, I mean, for crying out loud, 7, 8, 9 people, however many people you are right now, it doesn't take much to have literally every single day a 10 minutes chat in the morning and a 10-minute chat in the evening before you part, and just kind of leave it open out there. Last but not least, I think I mentioned this at the beginning, so rightfully we're doing this at the end. Remember, it is your baby, not your employee's baby. Don't expect them to pick up the phone or respond to an email at 9 p.m. Don't expect them to leave their child with high temperature in the morning to run to be at, 10 to 9 in the office. Just remember that they're people too. And with that, we are going to wrap this up pretty much now because it's 12:59. So, Rosie, what are your parting words for us today?
Well, it's always scary when you start a new venture, especially when you're looking for a lot of free stuff. But the good news is there is access to free information through platforms like StartUp's the Scale Up Club. And of course, I wish you every success with whatever your journey is. And don't worry, it's only going to get better.
Well, that is brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Rosie. And I'm sorry you had to bear being just with me on stage today. Hopefully, next time will be better.
You got the chatty side of me.
That's good. That's good. We like that. So, just a quick reminder to everybody for those of you that tuned into our LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram streams, please be aware that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there live. So next time, if you do want to get unstuck and you want some ideas from our brilliant panelists, you'll have to join us interactively via Microsoft Teams, and you can register to any preferred session for the future, that is, via our website, startup2scaleup.club. By the way, we run 6 regular events. Mondays, as you saw today, it's talent. Tuesdays, product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. Second Friday of the month, UK startup law. Third Friday of the month, UK startup finances. And they're all from 12 to 1 p.m. UK time. And as I said, if you go to startup2scaleup.club, you'll be able to register to any of them. What you actually might want to do too is go to our WhatsApp group. So there's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our site. You join our community of founders, investors, and operators. And you'll also get alerts for all future events. Remember, we have our Startup of the Month campaign live. There's a link on our website that says Startup of the Month. You can enter that, and the competition ends this Friday, by the way. So you might want to rush and hurry a little bit. If any of you have found any value in what you've heard today, please feel free to share this. We used to get up to 1,000, sometimes more people per session, and now we're not quite there yet, but we'll get back to that point. So we've changed platforms a few times, and therefore we need all the help we can get. Now, as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both challenging but also quite fun. So try to enjoy it and try to be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, huge thanks again. Hopefully see you tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A, where we'll have some brilliant product and tech people take questions to help you build your early stage. Otherwise, thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.